Next up, we have a great keynote speaker also. Her name is Sara Roversi, and she is an experienced entrepreneur, a thought leader, and disruptor in the food ecosystem. She works with globally recognized high-profile think tanks on setting the agenda for the sustainable food industry. She is often a sparring partner of key decision makers in business and government institutions. For the last 10 years, Sara's focus on inspiring and empowering creative and responsible food entrepreneur thoughts, educational programs, and disruptive innovation experiences. So I will give the floor to Sara, and please enjoy.
Hi everyone, I'm Sara Roversi. I'm the president of the Future Food Institute, and I'm so glad to be back virtually with you in Iceland. Today, I'm going to share with you some thoughts about how my technology will reshape the future of food. And when we talk about the future of food, I strongly believe we are talking about our future. We're talking about our life, our health, and let's say what's going to be our role as an active player in the humanity, in the planet of tomorrow. So let's start to think about what's the role that food plays in our life. Food is life. Food is our energy. Food is our nourishment. Food is love. Food is really something that combines all our relationship and soul and care. And whenever you think about your family, there's something related to food that comes up in your mind. Food is celebration. Food, every time we have to cheer for something, there's always food involved. Food is experiences and is our first way to be part of a community. Food is community. Food is traditions. Food is culture. Food is identity. Food is symbols. Food is really something that combines all our rituals, all our values, and of course is something more than what we eat. Food has the power to be a language. But let's think also about the paradoxes behind food, because anyway, we're talking about one of the sectors that is the most responsible for the global gas emission. We also know that behind food, and whenever we think about food, there are tons of issues related. It's still a sector in which we see many things that doesn't work. We waste more than 1/3 of our food every single year. Of course, we know that food is in some way responsible, but also is one of the sectors most affected by climate change, and also still is the sector in which we see that we have millions of people dying for hunger, but also many more that are affected by malnutrition because they are eating bad. So, of course, we have to think about from where our calories come from and also to think about the numbers. We know that technology can help, but before that, we need to build an infrastructure, a cultural infrastructure that will allow us really to take advantage of the global knowledge, to advance the transformation of the global food system. Those numbers are scary overall because we clearly understand that food is not equally distributed, that in food we can really make something that can better the health of the entire humanity. But thinking about humanity, where are we going to live in the future? Numbers says that the 70% of the world are going to live in big cities. And of course, I'm thinking about that so much because the big question in every conference I've been participating in the past was how much we're going to fit 10 billion people by 2050. But then I'm wondering, where are they living by 2050? And also, I'm wondering in which kind of cities they're going to live by 2050. If this is going to be the situation, we're going to see cities that are going to be made by very young people and other cities that are going to be very old. So thinking about the services that we need to develop, the new spaces for convening, how might we really see food as a tool to better the society and to be part of the society? So thinking about what's going to be the role of technology, of course, there are tons of opportunities for us now to rethink what's going to be the role of technology to make food a tool to heal the society of the future. But of course, thinking about all of those inspirations and input, we have to consider what has been the pandemic for all of us. The pandemic has been a huge accelerator of awareness everywhere in the world. And also, the pandemic has been a huge accelerator for the adoption of tons of technologies. And so, what we have been watching and seeing and analyzing everywhere in the world is that during the pandemic, first of all, everywhere in the world, we all reacted in the same way. We wanted to secure our food. The first days, all the supermarkets in the planet were affected by the same reaction. Access to food and sanitary emergency were the priority. And so thinking about the Maslow pyramid, we all reacted in the same way. We need to secure our nourishment. Then, after some weeks, everybody started wondering, is my food safe? From where my food comes from? How was the travel and the trip of my food? Can I get affected by COVID eating this food? And after all of those thoughts, people started reading newspapers, and in the newspaper, they were finding that farmers were disconnected with the city, that tons and tons of food goes wasted because the distribution channels were completely disrupted. And people started thinking about the issue of food sovereignty. Where is produced my food? How many miles it made? Can I survive with the food produced in my country? Of course, all of those questions are highlighting the big complexity of food. But also, all of those questions are showing us that for sure, many technologies can be adopted to reshape the future of food and make it more resilient and more sustainable. Those reactions were, of course, reactions that has been fostering the adoption of specific technologies. During the pandemic, our human behaviors have been very much affected, but digital was a big part of the big transformation of our behaviors. And this is what we have been seeing everywhere. Everywhere we saw the entire food system completely disrupted. And those pictures, for sure, has been traveling all around the world, opening the eyes of all the thousands or millions of people that never reflected about what's the role of food. So now I want to go back some years, and this is a map that we co-designed in 2014. Our institute was born in 2013. And in 2014, we get in touch with the Institute for the Future in Palo Alto. And we wanted to find a way to rethink food to remake the world. Because we were really thinking that food is the nexus of the society, is really the connector within all the different roles of a society. Food connects all of us, food connects all the countries, the industries, the sectors. Food is really our energy. And we identified 5 areas of innovation: better food governance, resilient ecosystems, food secure cities, celebrated cultures, stronger economies. And for all of those areas, we identified technologies, models, metrics, tools. But going on, we started also creating our own map, mapping out all the technologies within the entire global food system, trying to identify with a huge database who was developing the best research, the best technology, the best startup, the best company to solve all the different issues. And we created a huge database identifying all the technologies for all the 6 areas of the food chain, always putting people, digital, and culture, the cultural infrastructure, at the epicenter. Because, of course, when we think about the adoption of technology, we have to think about the adoption of technology here and now, considering all the different aspects and diversity of each population, of each different city. And so we started mapping out all the technologies that are connecting people with the environment, the transformation of the environment, everything that is connecting us to farming, sustainable fishing, and livestock, and caring about the soil, caring about the resources. Then we started thinking about how production can be reshaped and all the technologies that can foster the adoption of circular economy and all the food technologies that are now bettering all the process within the food transformation. Then we started thinking about how might we fix the issues of having access to food, first of all, food for all, but also nutrition for all, good food for all, safe food for all. And then we started thinking about the nourishment side. So what's the power of food if we consider really food as a medicine? And then how my technologies are reshaping our life, how my technology are reshaping our homes, how kitchens are changing, how our lifestyle is really changing thanks to technology. And last but not least, how might we get access to content, to knowledge, how we are creating the food literacy in the planet. But of course, something even better arrived, because in 2015, finally, we were not alone anymore. In 2015, the SDGs were adopted and presented to the planet. In September, exactly in these days. And then in Paris, we had finally, in COP21, a great agreement where people started setting the framework and saying that we have to stay and to stick under the 1.5 degree, because if not, we're going to see a catastrophe. Then Pope Francis announced the Laudato Si. The Laudato Si was probably the first paper that was actually announced by a leader in one of the religious voices in the planet, that was clearly highlighting that we need to care about the planet if we want to live healthy. We cannot live healthy in a sick world. And last but not least, the World Expo in Milan. It was the first global event saying, feeding the planet energy for life. Feeding planet energy life. So for the first time, people started connecting the dots. Of course, the SDGs were really a very, very powerful tool. And we started clearly seeing that SDGs are all interconnected with food, and food is touching all of them. And this gives us tons of opportunities to start to think about what's going to be really the process for the adoption of SDGs at a massive scale, also in food industry. How might we see SDGs as the big framework that can help us to accelerate the adoption of specific technologies that can really reshape the global food system? And when the SDGs came to life, we decided to create our own map to understand how we can really see food as the epicenter of the society, and how food combined with technology and innovation can become the big accelerator for the positive transformation of the planet. And doing that, we started identifying all the technologies, models, metrics in all the 5 sectors. We did this research together with the Food and Agriculture Organization, and actually gave us an incredible opportunity to discover tons of best practices all around the world. And what we did was a little bit a kind of a combination of all the map that we explored at the beginning with the Institute for the Future, with the 5 areas of innovation that, if you see, are pretty similar to what came out of this job. And on the other hand, mapping out all the different technologies that we found during the building up of our big compass that I showed you before. So we started identifying a kind of a process, and we started from climate smart ecosystems. And in climate smart ecosystems, of course, we started highlighting which are all the regenerative business models in, say, taking care of the planet by feeding it. All the impact of the new Green Deal, overall, the European Green Deal that is setting very high standards, all the carbon financing and carbon compensation strategy, and all the climate adaptation strategies that are absolutely needed, because IPCC stated very clearly, now we can go back and the damage we caused are absolutely unmanageable. The only thing that we can do is try to work for adaptation. After that, we started thinking about circular living. So when I'm talking about circular living, it's not only circular economy, but it's really a way to change our mindset and start to implement a different approach to the entire life. Thinking about not only the management of food waste, but from where my light comes from, where my fabric come from, and where I'm gonna go after in their second life. And so thinking about circularity in everything we do. After we started thinking about the role of food and culture, and how might food can really become a way to build bridges and not to create silo, to create inclusion in cities, to become really a tool to heal the society, thinking about food as a medicine, and then talking about social inclusion, diversity as a value, and behavioral changes through food. And last but not least, 2 different aspects: prosperity, because anyway, when we think about food, we think about the sector that is employing the major and vast number of people in the planet, in which there are still tons of issues of human rights. And anyway, we consider food as one of the sectors that is able to create the biggest prosperity. And on the other hand, food diplomacy, because we know how much food and the topic of access to food can become the reason to solve big issue, but also cause wars. And so diplomacy and all the diplomatic issues and geodiplomatic issues behind food are for sure one of the very important things we always have to keep in mind. And here we have to think about what we need to implement those technologies, because the technologies are available. We want trust, we have blockchain. We want to help people to take right decisions, we have artificial intelligence. Technology is there, technology is already available, but what we need now is a huge cultural shift. When we were studying, our professors 30 years ago, 40 years ago, were teaching us to make people want things we want to sell them. Then design thinking came to life, and we all changed our approach. We started thinking that we need to make things people want, co-designing the future with people. But now we strongly believe that we need to start thinking about making things planet wants, people and planet. So thinking about life as the epicenter. And we started changing our approach from a human-centered innovation to a human plus nature-centered innovation. And our organization started researching and designing a new methodology that is Design Thinking 2.0, that is called Prosperity Thinking. We adopted it for 5 years, testing it with the major food industries in the planet, with schools, with innovators, with farmers, with chefs, and can be adopted by any sector. But this is really the only way on how we can create innovation and use technology in a proper way. And now this is the situation. This was the National Geographic cover last year. We all know that we have no option, and every choice basically is up to us. Every bite we made, every choice we made can drive us to a very bad future or to a regenerative future, a future in which we can imagine that not by 2050, but 2100, we can live a planet that is going to be blue and green, and that our grandsons can live healthy in a healthy world. And so let's remember that each time we gather around the table, we are honoring our past, we are celebrating the present, sharing food and sharing meals with the people we love. And it's important to share food, to cook together, to celebrate. But also, every single bite connects us to the future. Thank you so much. Enjoy the summit, and I really look forward to be back in Iceland. Ciao.